But if you build the right thing when the things are unpopular, that's the time to go build something.
We all know that Carrol Shelby touched the 1965 Mustang and he did a great job with it. Then he came back in 1967 with a two-door Shelby GT350. But he never touched on the Boss. Now, we're going to let Carrol Shelby tell you what happened in his own words.
Actually, I lost all interest in '68. Yeah, it just got to be too much when we were trying to get things done, and Henry Ford brought Bunky Knudsen in, who was a fine guy, really pissed Iacocca off. And they were so busy fighting each other, cutting each other's throat, that nothing got done around there for a couple years. And it was through nobody's fault, I guess, just something that happens in a big company. And I said I didn't want any more of that. I guess I might have been kind of childish. I didn't have my guy to throw an armor-proof vest around me when I wanted to do something.
So Ford decided to use their own engineering talents at Carcraft for the 1969 season. This opened the door for Bud Moore and two field of cars for the complete season. Ford President Simon Bunky Knudsen personally ensured that the 1969 Mustang had the style and performance that would help it succeed. If I'm not mistaken, Bud Moore started this Trans Am series in a Mercury Cougar. The Trans Am Mustangs was in a class by itself in 1965 and 1966, and it won the inaugural Trans Am season hands down. Knowing that a few well-placed wins or even capturing their series champ, Lincoln Mercury decided to field a factory-backed squad of new Cougars for the Trans Am sophomore season. The team was assembled an impressive one, and Cougar stood every chance of winning the 1967 championship. That didn't happen, but the cars did well for a new model for its first campaign.
Uh-oh, Shelby.
So why did Lincoln and Mercury pull the Cougars off the Trans Am circuit for after only 1 year? Some observers believe that Lincoln and Mercury persisted for a second season. The Mercury Cougar would not only have emerged #1, but would have redefined one of the most exciting series in American racing. We may never understand Lincoln and Mercury's reasoning, but no one knows the real reasoning behind this. But
with a Camaro win and Ford second place, only 5 points separate the Mustangs, Cougars, and Chevrolets.
So close to a series win, and Lincoln and Mercury pulled them out of the series after 1 year? Doesn't really make any sense. Now that was 1967. Now in 1969, they jumped into a Mustang.
We started the Trans Am series for Ford Motor Company in 1969. We had Parnella Jones and George Foreman running for us. And we won, they had 11 races to run in 69. We won 6, I believe it was, out of 11, and Mark Donahue and Penske won the other 5, but they had 1 second place better than we were, and they won the championship in 1969.
Actually, we had a little bit of a tire problem toward the end of the year, and like I said, we should have won in '69, and so it was really a blessing to win in 1970.
He said, you know what? He said, if I'd have listened to you a little bit and got on Firestone, fixed them tires, we'd have won that championship in '69. I said, that's exactly right. I said, you know, every time you was way out front leading the race and the tires come apart, I said, that cost us the race, cost us that series.
So in 1970, we won, I believe it was 9 out of the 11 races in 1970, and we won the championship. So it was a good year for us.
The guys had a winning formula. With the '69 Mustang, it made the formula even more potent, but I was still wondering, why did they jump out of a Cougar so quickly? Now, this is my take on it. Bunky and Lee did not see eye to eye. It's all well documented. Now, you know that Carrol Shelby and Lee Iacocca was tight. Lee Iacocca didn't have the power at Ford like he used to. Shelby would have been at risk. So basically he was like, you know what, I ain't got no time. I'm going to Africa. And that would have been his best bet, and it was his best bet, because even if he stayed in that Trans Am series, I think Bud Moore and the Cougars, that sound like a rock band, but Bud Moore and the Cougars would have beaten Shelby in the Trans Am series, hands down, because I think that Bud Moore had better engines, better drivers, and a solid team that was really passionate, that was running on the same accord. So with that winning formula, I think Shelby would have lost anyway. But on the flip side of that, I think Bud Moore got slightly muscled out of the Lincoln and Mercury Cougar deal to get slightly muscled into the Mustang deal because Shelby was out.
His work with the Trans Am series led to Bud's development of the small block engines for Ford. In 1972, when Bud returned full-time to Winston Cup racing, it was with a '72 Ford a 351 Cleveland engine, and David Pearson in the driver's seat. The small block engine program had come to life. His cars were powerful, leaving the competition to look for the secrets of his horsepower.
Well, you know, that was one thing, you know, is what I always figured and we tried to do was have usable horsepower. In other words, you could have a lot of horsepower and no torque, and the car still didn't run too good. So we worked on torque on the engine to get power down low at low RPMs and hold the power all the way up through a certain RPMs, and this is how we worked at it.
The stars had aligned right. Shelby was out. Bunky Newson needed another guy to come in and take over this program because he was already pissed at GM already, and he already had the specs of the Chevy Camaro during this time because he's the one who created, along with Larry Shinoda, who ended up creating the Boss Mustang for 1969. So they had the ins and outs. All they needed was a person to devise a team to be able to win on Sunday and sell on Monday. And Bud Moore was the ideal candidate. That's why I think in 1967, 1968, they were already eyeing up Bud Moore. And I think that contract with the Lincoln and Mercury was diminished because of Bunky Newson doing that, to leave Bud Moore in limbo so he can grab him, bring him over here to Mustang, and be able to get that Boss Mustang out there on that track. And then let me tell you something, it worked. What do you guys think? I have an ADHD moment. I'm going to talk about the Carcraft Aussie version of the 302 Mustang, the Coca-Cola Red version, driven by Allan Moffat.
Probably the single most significant car in Australian touring car history. Moffat brought this car from the US. It's one of 7 built, all handmade by Carcraft, and brought it here and just changed the face of racing forever. He became Australia's first professional racer, where he had to rely on race wins to actually continue on racing. And you have a look at the thing, you know, here in the Bowden family, we just call the thing Sex on Wheels. It's just an amazing bit of gear, glorious car, and running down this straight, you hear the thing, it's just fantastic. Sitting in the car, it goes through you. It's really hard to explain. And it really is quite a symbiotic thing to hop in it and know this is what Allan Moffat touched in these great races, these great events, a lot of them that he did here in Tassie. And running down that straight, it's just sensational. The noise of the car, the way it feels, the slick of the gear change, it's just such a beautiful shift in the car, the quick clutch on the thing. Oh, it's a glorious, glorious bit of gear.
Your strike ratio of success in this car is extraordinary. 151 starts, 101 race wins. That's not a bad innings.
It earned its keep over 6 years. Did a lot of miles in it, but it was a joy to drive, and was very popular with the fans.
I said at the top of the show, 42 years on, and it's still just as significant, just as beautiful today as it was when it first rolled out in the racetrack. Hey, I want to do something because we've not done this so far in the program, and that is to have a look beneath the bonnet, which is where it's all at with these cars. So let's sneak around and have a peek at this thing, because it is, and this is a phrase of mine, it's engineering art. It is beautiful under here.
Well, this is exactly the way it was produced. A famous Boss 302, which is 5 liters in our language, equipped with the Weber downdraft carburetors, essentially a carburetor for every cylinder, and it had a total of 485 horsepower in 1969.
And believe it or not, that engine is the basic same engine as what we use in the Ford V8 supercar today.
Isn't that fantastic?
As you can notice in this video, all these engines are small blocks, 351, 302. That is it. Also, too, we want to show you another video with Allan Moffat with his Ford Falcon when he brought it to the U.S. to get it tuned up.
Our main reason for bringing the car to the United States was to take full advantage of all the engineering that was available. I guess I've got a lot of friends over here that have helped me over the years, and have certainly kept our Trans Am Mustang going very efficiently. And that's why we're here, to get the best engineering science we can into the vehicle. Our initial test at Waterford was certainly by no means on an international circuit. It just so happened that this particular circuit is only 20 miles outside of Detroit and is used for club racing there, but it gave us an opportunity to see that oil pressure was working and the engine installation was basically correct. Bathurst is so important to us because of the prestige of the event, and personally because it is so rewarding to win an event of this nature. Anybody can get a vehicle together and do 10 laps at Calder or Sandown, but to participate in a 1,000 kilometer race is just a little bit above the average, and as such is so much more of a challenge and that much more rewarding.
Thank you guys for checking out the video in its entirety. Thank you guys for supporting. Behind the scenes, I'm doing this 302 Explorer motor, and we took it off the AC compressor and the power steering pump, and we rerouted the belt. We had to change this from a rear sump to front sump so we could put it inside of the Maverick. And we have the flywheel, we have the clutch. We're going to put in used parts from the first go around, and then once we get everything dialed in, then we'll start buying new parts and take the thing back out, and then we can, you know, make it a little bit more tighter. But first we have to get the engine to run. That is the main key. Please leave a comment below and talk about the stories about all your rides and everything. It inspires me to keep this thing going because I want to share a story with you guys too through video. So that's why I want to hear your story, so I could be able to just keep on going and keep on pushing it, man. So thank you so much for watching this video in its entirety. We'll check you out on the next video. Later.